we really appreciate, Tom, that you came onto the show. So it's really a pleasure and a privilege to have you here.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you guys for having me. You're both a joy, a lot of fun, especially when you're together. It just seems to escalate.
Yeah, things tend to escalate when you and I get together. Well, let's get right into it. That is one of the nice things about having an inner circle and names is your names change based on who you're around. I know because my mother's watching, we're actually going to call me Baruch Noam, because otherwise most people call me Baruch, and that's one of those things, hi Ma, that we're just going to go by Baruch, let's just say. But let's introduce our wonderful guest for tonight. So our guest tonight is Tom Earp. He is a coach, speaker, and educator with over 30 years in personal and professional development. He is the founder and managing director of Next Gen Ability, providing consulting, training, and coaching specializing in leadership dynamics, transforming leaders, teams, and careers for the next generation of work. Tom believes that the quality of life, happiness, and work is dependent on the quality of our relationships, and that the quality of our relationships is dependent on the quality of our communication with ourselves and with others. At the core of leadership dynamics is ESP, emotional, social, and personal intelligence. Tom helps leaders and teams tune in, tap in, and turn on their ESP to become enlightened leaders and empowered teams to help make shift happen culturally for their organizations. I have to say, that's probably one of the most brilliant bios I've ever read. And internally, I'm going, holy crud muffins, this guy knows what he's talking about. And like, that's speaking directly to me. So that's fascinating. I love how you've married the world of personal and professional development, but also education and personal and professional development. And then we'll talk more about that. But Tom, talk to us about how you got there. Like, tell us more about what it is that you do, and then what was the journey where you started from to where you are now, because that is fascinating.
Brilliant.
Okay, well, I'll start with where I am and what I'm doing in particular right now as a coach and trainer as well as consultant, and that's really looking at leadership and team dynamics. For me, it's not about leadership training, because there are how many books on leadership, but our leadership, according to research, has not really improved, at least organizationally. And team building is one of those elusive concepts as well. And it kind of ties into what you're talking about tonight with community. Just because you have a group of people doesn't mean you have a community any more than it means you have a team. There has to be some common connection, some kind of common bond, not just a common goal, but just the common language in which they communicate with each other. And so I basically help people understand themselves better so they can communicate with themselves and others in a way that they can be best understood, and meanwhile seeking to understand other people. And so as leaders become more comfortable in their own skin and more comfortable getting under the skin of others, not in an agitating way, but to really get underneath who they are and discover them, they're better able to lead them, not where they necessarily want them to go, but help them learn how to lead themselves to where we want to go.
Right.
I got my start in education. I, like most of us, probably struggled in the early years of what it was that I wanted to major in, what did I want to do with the rest of my life when I grow up. Still kind of curious about that, the growing up part, at least. I went to college initially to be an engineer because I had believed that I was good in math, and I loved the drafting and design aspect of the engineering process, creativity. But thanks to Dr. Goodall, he changed my life altogether. I realized that my teachers in high school had lied to me about my math prowess. And so I discovered a book over the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, Fast Track Careers to Engineering. And that's where I realized that this is not the life for me, that most engineers don't do engineering. And a lot of it had time behind a desk. And I knew that would be just insanity for me. So I began that journey of looking, not necessarily outside myself, but because a lot of people were, doctor, lawyer, that kind of stuff. But I began to look inside, and what was it that really turned me on? And I found a love for speech in high school, psychology in high school. And so as I began to take those classes my sophomore year, I just fell in love. I fell in love with communication courses primarily because of my love for psychology and human behavior, and communication is just the vehicle for all of that. And so got my bachelor's in that, got my master's as well. And during my master's program, I was a teaching assistant, actually handling my own classes. And that was where I caught the bug for the educational process. And it just kind of spiraled from there to where we are today. I cut my teeth in grad school as a teaching assistant, coaching speech and debate. And my first team actually coached me because they were experienced from high school and 2 or 3 years in college already. And I learned from them. I learned more about human nature, human conditioning, and the behavioral process, as well as the actual events themselves, and went on to coach my own teams over the years. And it was in that coaching process with speech that I really discovered my love for the self-improvement, personal and professional development. I was a really good coach. My teams were very successful, but not so much because of my prowess with debate and public speaking per se, as much as it was understanding people and helping them select topics and ideas that were most suitable for them. And it was just a really good fit. And so over time, this began to venture outside the classroom to do some training, some development, and found a real love for the coaching process. It's just, I was doing it all those years and didn't know it, and went through some formal training, and just a lot of the light bulbs went off. And so that's where I find myself now. I've done a lot of leadership and team development over the years, probably since 2002. But about 5 years ago, I transitioned into the career development, career transition, life transition coaching phase. But I found a lot of my coaching clients were not so much dissatisfied with their job as much as they were dissatisfied with the community, the team relationships, or their leadership perspectives. And so as I helped them discover themselves so that others could discover them, it seemed that the real key to helping people in their career development is with leadership and team development. For me, it's seamless that if a leader understands their people and develops them individually for their career, it's going to spill over into the team, and those team members become leaders, and it just begins to just sort of cascade down and flow forward.